Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. In today's review we're going to be taking a look at the 5th Doctor and Tardis playset from the Visitation, which is available now in B&M stores. Once again, I'd like to thank my amazing girlfriend for picking up this set, as without her this review wouldn't have happened. So as ever, whether you like it or not, we're going to first take a look at the packaging. So, as ever, the set comes in the now familiar blue and white style guide, with the limited edition foil sticker on the front, as well as some additional information. On the back, you have a synopsis of the story of the Visitation, as well as some publicity images of the figures themselves. Opening up the box, you get a lovely backdrop of the woods that starred in the Visitation, as well as a few Easter eggs, such as the droid that was used in the episode dressed as the Grim Reaper. So taking the figures out of the box, they do look absolutely amazing. Now I'm really glad that we've now got a proper version of the 5th Doctor's TARDIS, as the first one that we got way back in 2019 was really good, but it could only be used for one story, which was the case of Androzani. So it's pretty much almost the same as this, but in my opinion, it is not as glossy. The mud splatters are obviously gone, and the wash on the TARDIS itself is slightly different. But I'm glad that we have got a proper version that we could put on our shelves that could be from any story from his tenure, and you can make do with that. And also, if you did miss out on the Caves of Androzani version, you have now got this one. But before we get into the TARDIS, I firstly want to take a look at the 5th Doctor. So the 5th Doctor is a re-release technically, as this was released way back in 2010 in a San Diego Comic-Con set along with the Master, which was technically Chameleon, and it's become very sought after because it's very hard to get a hold of these days. In mint condition on eBay, it can go up to about £100, even more. I was lucky enough to be able to get that set, but it is nice to have this one here, as there's a few alterations on this figure that do make it better from the original. So the head sculpt is very nice and crisp. You can tell who it's supposed to be. It does look like Peter Davison in my opinion. And the paint apps on the face are very nice and crisp. You know, you can tell who it's supposed to be. The hair itself is lovely. It's painted in this lovely brownish colour with specks of blonde painted on top to represent what his hair looked like throughout the early years. The hat on top is also a very nice addition. Now on the original, they did sort of batter it up a little bit, like adding that sort of flecks of dirt or whatever you want to call it. It was like a lighter tan colour. This isn't present on here, unfortunately, but it's still a nice little addition. Same goes with the hat band. His should really have the little polka dot design on there, but because it's so small, it's very hard to put that sort of detail on there. So now moving down to the body, now this is where it gets really interesting. With the coat and the arms itself, they have been cast in this beige colour instead of being painted this time round, and I think the details on there look crisper than any other 5th Doctor release. When you're painting a figure, some details do get lost, unfortunately. But this time around, I think it's a really good idea. They did something similar with the 4th Doctor from the Terror of the Zygon set, but this is excellent. I'm so glad that they've done this. The only detail that has been painted on this coat is the piping on the lapels and on the cuffs and on the back as well, and it looks really nice. He also has a stick of celery that has been painted in that lovely white and green colour. It's rather detailed with all the crinkles in the leaves and just looks really nice, and that is glued to the side of his lapel. So now moving on to the shirt. The shirt is pretty similar to what the other 5th Doctor ones look like, with the red design on the inside of the shirt as well as underneath the collar, and with the question marks printed on top of the collar. This time round they haven't painted the button. I do prefer this time round, as it did stand out on all of the other 5th Doctor figures that were released beforehand, and I'm glad they have changed it. It's a very subtle difference, but it works out for the better. And for the next big change here is in fact the jumper. Now as usual, it's painted in this lovely vibrant white colour with this lovely textured pattern to make it look like it's been knitted, and as well as that, the V has been updated. Now beforehand the colours have never been exactly right for some reason. Usually the first thin line on the top has usually been like a red colour, They have now changed this to make it brown, which is actually correct, and then you have that lovely red V underneath. Again, that's usually been the same, but they have also updated the bottom V to be black, which is correct. It's always been like a blue colour on previous releases, but I'm glad that they have updated it here. So I'm pretty pleased here with the jumper, as it's now more accurate than ever on any other release, and I hope, again, they do keep this going with later releases of the Fifth Doctor. Next, moving down to the trousers, just like the coat, it has been cast in this lovely sort of creamish colour with the red and beige stripes painted on. Pattern has been simplified here, but works out for the better, as on such a small scale it can be quite difficult to paint every single detail on. Now, unfortunately, some of the details have been missing, it's particularly on the inside of the leg, but it is an issue that does recur on other Fifth Doctor figures, and it doesn't bother me too much as you don't really see the inside of his leg. And then moving down to the shoes, they have been painted in this lovely white paint, and it works rather well here. There's actually no added detail on this time round with his shoes, like such as dirt or mud or whatever. They have just been simplified here, which I think works for the best. For articulation, it is pretty standard on this figure. The head can turn from side to side. Now, I'm not going to actually move it all the way, because on all my Fifth Doctor figures, the neck scratches very easily on the right hand side, so I don't really like to tend to do it as much. The arms can do a full 360, the biceps can do a full 360, that one's actually a bit loose, the elbows can move to a 90-degree angle, and the wrists do a full 360, but again, they seem very stiff on this figure, so I'm going to be very careful. The waist can also do a full 360, and the legs can move forward and out to the sides, and the legs can also do a full 360, as well as bend at the knee. Overall, I think this is a very good figure. I really think it's good for people who did miss out on the initial release way back in 2010, but this time around the paint apps have been updated, so you get an even better figure if you wanted to track down this version. Up next we have the Tardis, which is pretty much a sort of revamp from what we got back in 2019 with the Caves of Androzani one, but this time around it has been updated without the mud and all the crap that was put on it, and it is sort of a slightly different blue, so you know, and this could be another reason to buy this set. But one thing to add is actually that this is probably the most accurate TARDIS toy that we're ever likely going to get. The reason being is because on top you have that block on the roof that houses the light, and that is actually quite accurate to what was seen in season 19. Mostly in that story, the TARDIS light had a little stand on there, so this is probably the most accurate toy out there to this day. I mean, there is still a few minor gripes on this, such as the door handle and the keyhole placement. It shouldn't really be there, but that would require a brand new sculpt to change all that, so it doesn't really bother me here. So the colour of this TARDIS is a slightly lighter blue this time round to the previous Fifth Doctor one, which was released back in 2019. It does look a lot better colour-wise. It is quite similar to what was seen in the Visitation and throughout season 19. I will say this about the toy: the colour itself can vary in different types of lighting. For example, here it looks quite dark in tone, but taking it outside and taking a photo in the sunlight can vary the colour. But overall, it doesn't bother me here with the colour too much, as the photos here don't really do it justice, so that's one thing to think about when purchasing this toy. The windows themselves have been painted in a lighter colour this time around, as on the Caves of Androzani version, the windows were yellow, and I wasn't much of a fan of the yellow windows, as I really didn't know why they did that. But the wash on here is still quite heavy in my opinion. I think it could be toned back just slightly, but overall it is a very nice attention to detail. But speaking of detail wise, the dirt wash that they have applied over the box really does bring out the wooden effect on here, even though the props didn't really have them. But the only thing I will be wary of is the fact that the sellotape that they now apply onto the doors to keep them shut in the packaging, if you do pull them off too quickly, it does unfortunately rip off some of the detail. But everything else, the wash is also applied to the pull to open sign, as well as the police box signs on top. They just look fantastic. Speaking of decals, the portal open sign is correct with the same style of text that is used on the actual prop. However, the sign did change throughout the season 18 and 19. It did get updated because it either went missing or got bashed about, but it does look correct here. Same with the signage, you know, it has that lovely dirt texture as I've mentioned, and has the correct type of font or similar fonts to represent what was seen in that story. And to finish off, you have the Tardis Lamp, which is detailed with the Fresnel lens, with the 3 corner posts, and with the lid on top with the little dome. So, just like with every other TARDIS toy that exists out there on the market, the main feature for this, literally all you can do is open the doors. And to shut them again, you pull this one first. There's a little catch at the top, and for the left door, you press this spring-loaded button on the bottom, and it closes just like that. Overall, I think this is a marvellous set to get a hold of if you did miss out on that Androzani one. I know that people were very unsure about getting this at first because it was quite similar to the Androzani one and people were undecided whether to get it or not. As well as that, a lot of people did buy a spare Androzani one to customise by removing all the mud. I mean, I was tempted as well because I didn't think we'd get another one. But I'm glad I held back and waited just a while longer to get my hands on this one. Because not only that, you do get a re-release and a much better updated figure of the Fifth Doctor. I mean, the paint apps on this one are superb. I think the likeness is very much like Peter Davison, and if you did miss out on that original release that came out all those years ago, this is probably the best time to buy it. Now, they are still available in B&M, but they are slowly fading out to make way for new sets that will probably come out in the summer. So grab it while you can. If not, eBay's around, and if not that, Facebook groups, may I add, because there's always people trying to sell them on. That is pretty much it for now, and thank you for watching this review. And if you like this video, then go subscribe and hit the bell icon for more future stuff, if I do, you know. Anyhow, this has pretty much been the review. My next review will be on the Coal Hill School set, and yeah, make sure to check out for that, and I suppose that is it, so see you soon.